Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lanham Property TV. I'm here today with Catherine, one of the founding directors of Mortgage Direct, to tell us a bit about what they do and how they can help with mortgages for buyers who are either resident or non-resident looking to purchase a property in Spain. So good morning. Welcome, Catherine.
Good morning, Matthew. Thank you for having me on your show.
No problem at all. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy. So I guess to start with, please just tell us a bit about yourself and Mortgage Direct, how it started. Just a bit of information for everybody about the business.
Yeah, no problem. No, we started 15 years ago. Myself and my business partner, Kevin Munger. We started off in Valencia offering a face-to-face service. And we soon realised with the market not being regulated and we weren't actually meeting the clients because everything was done so quickly over the phone and via email, we branched out all over Spain. So we cover mainland Spain, the Balearics, the Canaries, and we're now a team of 16, 12 active advisors. And so we cover everything from non-resident mortgages. Our market is for international clients. We do deal with resident clients, but usually they're international, foreigners who have moved to Spain. So, we cover the whole market. We work with all the main banks in Spain, but we also work with private lenders in like Switzerland, Luxembourg, bespoke banks, bespoke lenders, private investors. So we cover the whole board.
Fantastic! Yeah, that sounds sounds very interesting to have such a wide range. One of the things that we get asked a lot about, particularly by buyers who are looking to move to Spain, or either to live or to get a holiday home, is whether they can get a mortgage on Spanish properties. And obviously, things work very differently here to the UK, Northern Europe, and many other countries. Could you give us a brief overview on what is the realities of trying to get a mortgage on a property in Spain?
Yeah, no, it's very easy to get a mortgage in Spain. A lot of buyers think it's not possible. They speak to people like ourselves or other brokers and they realise, wow, I can get a mortgage on a Spanish property. The maximum that you can borrow is between 60 and 70% for a non-resident, so somebody who's not paying their taxes in Spain. And the client needs to allow around 9, 10 to 13% for the fees and taxes on top. And if the client is a fiscal resident, so they're paying their income taxes and social security in Spain, then they can borrow 80%. So they'd need the 20% deposit plus around 9, 10, 13% for the fees and taxes on top. And we do everything from urban land properties, and clients can borrow on rustic land as well. Sometimes the borrowing may be less. You may be looking at, say, 60%, although a lot of the times we are achieving 70% on rustic land properties.
Fantastic. We deal with a lot of rustic properties here, so that's really interesting because I know some of our local banks are not very keen on lending on rustic properties, or the percentages they'll lend actually are very small because they use the fiscal value, the EB value of a property. How is the value calculated for when you're looking at it? Is it a market value, or is there a calculation that you can work the percentage?
It depends on the area, and obviously the valuers look at other properties that have sold in the area, so it really depends. Not always I go for market value, so the valuations tend to come in lower. For rustic land, we have got some good contacts with independent valuers who we use. So the main criteria is that the property is correctly registered, all the documentation is correct when the client goes to the notary, and sort of minimum prices around 150,000. Anything less, the banks aren't keen on. So we say 150,000 upwards
for rustic land.
For rustic land, yes.
Is there a minimum for urban properties?
No, not really. Although the banks, aren't keen. Some banks won't lend if the mortgage amount is less than €100,000. At Mortgage Direct, our minimum price is usually around, the €100,000 mark. Some banks will take smaller loans, but in those situations, clients are probably best going to a bank directly.
Sure. Okay. So one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is about how the loan is calculated. So I guess for most people, it'd be affordability.
Yes.
Does that vary much between different lenders, or is there a general
it's a good
rule?
question. There's a general rule of thumb that a third of a client's monthly net income has to support their existing debts, monthly debts, and any significant expenses, and the new Spanish mortgage payment. So in Spain, affordability is a lot more cautious than what clients are used to in the UK.
Sure.
Some banks use, a ratio of, say, 30%. I think there's a couple of banks that will use 40% debt to income ratio. But if the client assumes that a third of their net monthly income, then that's a good general rule.
Okay, that's great. And in terms of the timescales for when people should start the process if they need a mortgage, what sort of timescale does it take from someone sort of first contacting you, making that initial application, through to finding out if they can get a mortgage?
Yes, I mean, we send out our quotes within 24, 48 hours once we've got the client's details. They just need to complete our form, or we speak to the client over the phone. But when they submit an application to the bank, assuming the bank's got all the documents and there aren't any missing, so from that point, it depends on the bank. Some banks will turn mortgage approvals subject to valuation around in a few days. Other banks can take weeks, and of course it depends on the client's profile as well.
Of course,
if it's a client who's got holding companies and their profile's more complicated, then it can take longer, but usually about 1-2 weeks.
Oh, that's pretty quick, because I know Spain does like its paperwork.
Yes, no, exactly. And since the regulation, you've then got the 10-day cooling off period.
Of course.
So in the past, when we used to say from start to finish, it'd be sort of 6 to 8 weeks. Now it's much more advisable for clients to allow longer, say 8 to 12 weeks. So
there's still a reasonable amount of time for most people. Yeah, that's fantastic. And in terms of different types of mortgages, one I get asked a lot about is buy-to-let mortgages, but they kind of don't really exist in Spain in the same way they do in many countries.
No, they don't. There was one bank offering what they called a buy-to-let mortgage. It's actually with Barclays Bank a number of years ago, but it was still based on the client's affordability and not the future anticipated rent from the property. So it really wasn't a buy-to-let product. But no, you're right, they don't exist. And if anything, the banks in Spain, it's quite an unsophisticated market. The banks are very cautious. They've had their fingers burnt. The rental market in Spain is totally different to the UK. A lot of properties have been damaged by tenants. And for that reason, the banks aren't keen on lending if the property is going to be rented. Having said that, they do lend, but sometimes the borrowing will be less. And even with some banks, they even treat it like a commercial loan because they support business. But no, it is possible to rent out.
Okay. And are there different types of mortgages that people might be used to available, such as fixed rates or variable rates? How do they work in Spain?
Yes. So you can get a fixed rate and you can get a variable rate. And I think you can even get a mixed product with a couple of the banks. So as for say 5 years fixed, and then you go on to a variable. Like I said, the market here is pretty unsophisticated. So it is very basic in terms of the types of products. One thing that's interesting, because in the UK, all products, so if you went to NatWest Bank, for example, I don't know if NatWest still exists, but if you go to Nationwide or one of the banks and you go to all the different offices in the UK, you'll get offered exactly the same rate in whichever branch you visit. In Spain, it's totally different. So you can go to the same bank in a different area of the country and you'll be offered, to completely different rates. So, I mean, that's to our advantage because, we get exclusive conditions and we've got the right contacts. So, clients always save with us than going to the same bank themselves. So,
the bank branches seem to operate more like almost like a franchise here, don't they? Where each bank still, I guess, a bit like probably 20, 30 years ago in the UK when the bank manager actually had control and the decision to make.
No, absolutely. It's exactly like that. And they're almost in competition with each other. And you think it's in the same bank, but no, that's how it is.
So what's the so talk me through the process, just to give our viewers an idea of how things work from the initial contact with yourselves through to sort of the assessment and approaching the lenders, etc.
Yeah, so the initial we initially speak with the client, and we offer a virtual service as well, so the clients can book a meeting with one of our advisors. And usually we get their information first. They either complete our form, just so we've got a general overview of their profile. We speak with the clients, and then we send a mortgage quote. Okay. And all our initial advice is free of charge, so there's no cost to the client. We then send a quote, assuming that we believe the client qualifies. And would you like to know the charges, Matthew?
Yeah, I think that'd be good for our clients. I mean, I appreciate different size mortgages, different cases are going to be different, but a ballpark would be useful.
Yeah, no, I'll give you a general overview. If the client wishes to go ahead, and we then charge €695, and that comes with a money back guarantee. So if we can't achieve the conditions on the quote and the client doesn't want to go ahead with anything less, we guarantee to pay that fee back. We then get the documents from the client. So we don't take the documents at the beginning because we offer a very quick and efficient service.
Sure.
And we say to the client, we assume that your documents are going to support, the information that you've provided or that you've told us.
So it's important for the client to be honest with you, very honest up front.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, definitely. And then we sent the quote, we then get the client's documents, and we then process the case and send the client's documents to the bank or banks. So if we have any doubts whatsoever, we'll have a backup bank. So we apply to 2, maybe even 3 banks, because what you don't want for the client is that they're in the process with the seller, and then the mortgage doesn't happen, and then the seller says, hold on, I'm not waiting for you to start the process all over again. So we have a backup bank in most cases, unless it's a very straightforward case. We then get the mortgage approval, hopefully, from the bank. We don't send out quotes unless we're confident we can get the mortgage, because we don't want to be paying our fees back and doing all the work. So
of course,
we're very confident. And for that reason, we get priority with the banks, because they know the client's paid an initial fee that's refundable. They know we've pre-qualified the client. And so that's why we've got such a good relationship with the bank. So when they see a mortgage from an application from Mortgage Direct, we get priority. So we then get the mortgage approval. And then the next stage is to get the valuation done. And under the new regulatory law and the mortgage regulation, the client can now choose their own valuation company, assuming it's approved by the Bank of Spain. It's a huge advantage to the client.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah. There were problems with valuations in the past, so we can help the client there. Some banks still insist, although they shouldn't, that they use their own valuation company as a backup, but most banks don't. So you then get the assuming the valuation suitable, the client then gets what they call a FAIN document, and with all the conditions. They have to wait for the 10-day cooling off period, and then they can arrange the notary and collect the keys.
Fantastic. Well, you make it sound very simple.
Most of the time, not
most
always.
of the time, yeah.
Yes.
And how are you finding the mortgage market at the moment? I mean, the market in Spain took obviously a big hit after the sort of 2008, but and has been fairly flat, but seems to be picking up in most places now. Are you experiencing similar? Yeah,
no, definitely. All the banks are lending. Prior to the crisis, there were only like 2 or 3 banks that were lending to international clients. Now it's totally different. So a lot of banks are competing, offering mortgages to non-residents and foreign clients who are fiscal residents.
Yeah.
And at any one time, we're probably dealing with 8 to 10 banks, which is great for the client. So the conditions are fantastic. The banks want to lend. And it's a really good moment for clients to take out a mortgage, because with the borrowing being so cheap, the costs have been significantly reduced to what they were. And clients are saying, well, I'd rather hold on to my cash or use it for something else and take out a mortgage on a property.
Yes, with interest rates so low, it's almost seems better to buy with a mortgage than with cash, which is a strange position to be in.
No, definitely. I mean, we've never been busier. So during the pandemic, we had our busiest year ever. And, one of the reasons that, just as we're talking, that clients want to hold on to their cash, take out a mortgage. And also people are bringing their dreams forward. So
Yes.
with the pandemic, I think people have looked at things differently. They think, well, let's not wait 5 years for our dream to move or buy a property in Spain. Let's, buy now.
Yeah.
And so no, it's a great time to take out a mortgage.
Right. And are you seeing much of a difference in sort of which end of the market? I mean, I know the higher end of the market has just been crazy the last
Yes.
the last year or two, and the lower end of the market seems to be catching that up now.
Absolutely.
Have you seen much difference between the two?
Yes, no, we have. We've seen a huge increase, which is fantastic for us, in the price of the property and hence the mortgage amount. So our average really has increased significantly. And a lot of UK buyers are still sort of waiting for the travel restrictions to improve. Of course, they have improved, but it's still a hassle for British buyers to travel. So that's starting to change. So, so that will have an impact on the prices as well.
Of course, yeah, we've certainly seen that as more and more British buyers are starting to come over, but sort of from all over the world, really, we're starting to see that influx happen now.
Yes.
I guess the dreaded B word always appears, but have you seen much impact with Brexit, or is that
no, we haven't. Not as much as we thought. A lot of buyers were putting their plans on hold until they knew the outcome of Brexit. And when there was a deal, lots of people, even if they weren't in favour of Brexit, they just said, right, we know where we are now. We think the economy will be more stable. So let's buy. We haven't seen a huge impact in this the rule that you've got to spend so many days in Spain for people who want to move out here. Some people it's affected, but no, we've been really, really busier than ever.
I guess kind of like ourselves, we deal with a full range of international buyers, not just UK buyers, and quite often, I think a lot of the UK buyers think they're the only ones that influence the market. But do you find the percentage of buyers you deal with is sort of equally spread across different countries, or is there any particular focuses?
Yeah, we're always looking at our stats and what percentage are British buyers. And and our the British buyers did fall significantly, mainly because of travel. But we do a lot of business with the Dutch, a very strong market. American buyers, and we've seen a huge increase in Americans. And I think one of the reasons is because a lot of they feel safe in Spain. The Americans love Europe and Spain in particular because they can speak the language. They lots of English areas. Speaking areas, but now we cover all nationalities, so Hong Kong, Singapore, clients from New Zealand, across the whole board. So.
Yeah, we've seen a big increase in American buyers as well, which has been quite interesting. Andalusia in particular seems to be very popular with American buyers. So we don't tend to get many from sort of Singapore way in this area, but I know there are a lot more, particularly on the coast, etc. But Catherine, that's been fantastic. I think you've been giving us an awful lot of information there.
No problem at all.
Is there anything else you think would be useful as some advice for someone who maybe is thinking of buying a property in Spain with a mortgage?
Yeah, all our advice is, contact us or a broker sooner than later. So what really helps when a client's coming to buy in Spain, when they're with an agent, if that agent knows that the client's already spoken with a mortgage broker, and even if they've just got a quote, they've got the process underway, and it gives the estate agent a lot more confidence and to help with the price as well. So for those clients that have even taken the stage further and actually got a mortgage approval before they've even come to buy a property, it really helps in negotiating the price as well. So because they look a really serious buyer. So that would be my advice.
Okay, that's really good. We do actually see a lot of sellers now who, if a buyer needs a mortgage, they will ask, have they got an approval? Because if they haven't, they almost don't want to have the viewing because they feel it's not really worth it without the approval. So that's some great advice. So no problem. Catherine, thank you so much for your time. That's been really useful. And we'll put the details below of how to contact yourselves for anyone who needs a mortgage, and they can get in touch and get some personal advice. So,
no problem at all.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Goodbye for now.
Thank you.